The stars were silent. Cold. Unforgiving. They bore witness to everything, yet remembered nothing. Aboard the Vindicator, the crew stood at attention on the observation deck, lined in solemn ranks. Outside the viewport, Earth glowed faintly in the distance, distant, pale, unaware of the quiet grief orbiting its skies. Commander Lyra Mason didn't blink. Not as the black coffin pod glided from the launch bay. Not as the funeral hymn played through the internal comms. Not even as the pod ignited into a controlled burst of white fire, vaporized in a flash, scattered across space like stardust. Captain Elias Ward was gone. Lyra's hand twitched behind her back. Her knuckles ached, fists clenched too long. The burn behind her eyes stayed there, held by sheer force of will. A younger ensign across from her flinched at the explosion's glow. She couldn't blame him. The kid had only served under Ward a month before the Phoenix was turned to debris. A voice crackled in her earpiece. Valkyrie, the ship's AI. Ceremonial dispersal complete. Captain Ward's biometric markers have been respectfully terminated. I know, Lyra murmured. I washed. The silence lingered. Then she turned. Dismissed the crew. They saluted as one, sharp and mechanical, and filed out wordlessly. No one spoke. No one cried. Not here. Not in front of her. Later, alone in the captain's quarters, still technically his, never reassigned, she played the footage again. It had been looped 100 times since the attack. The Phoenix drifted toward the Serothi border, unarmed, transmitting diplomatic clearance. Captain Ward stood calmly on the bridge, sleeves rolled, smiling faintly at the comms officer. Then came the light. Serothi warships decloaked. A barrage of high-energy torpedoes hit before the alarms finished sounding. Ward didn't run. Didn't hide. He shielded 2 crew members with his own body, forcing them into the escape pod, before the bridge collapsed in flame. No chance to fire back. No warning. Just death. And lies. The Serothi called it a tragic malfunction. The Galactic Concordium labeled it an unfortunate escalation. Earth requested investigation. No one answered. The display darkened. Lyra stared at her reflection in the black glass. He believed in them, she said aloud. All of them. Every one of those fork-tongued bastards. The war room lights dimmed as her senior officers entered. Lieutenant Coven was first, arms crossed, always looking like he hadn't slept in days, mostly because he hadn't. All systems green. Engine stable. Payloads armed. Chief Yano followed, massive arms folded behind his back, voice low. Orbital cannons prepped. No questions from the weapons crews. They are ready. Lyra nodded. Let's get it over with. The hologrid lit up. The target blinked red. Meriden Border Post, a Serothi observation station with a skeleton crew and outdated shielding. First blood, Coven muttered. She tapped the display. Not blood. Message. Yano frowned. You think they'll hear us? They'll listen when we make them. The comms console blinked, encrypted channel. The EarthGov crest appeared, then flickered into President Hallstrom's face. Wrinkled. Gray. Exhausted. Commander Mason, he began, no ceremony. You're officially cleared for counter-response operations under Article 9 of EarthCon Protocol. No fleet support? None. Concordium won't intervene. Some won't even answer our calls. So it's just us, she said. It's always been just us, Hallstrom replied. Do what you must. But know this, if you strike, the war becomes real. Lyra leaned closer. It's been real since Ward's bones turned to ash. Hours later, she stood in the strategy alcove alone, pulling up Captain Ward's last log. His voice filled the space, weary but steady. To whoever finds this, I hope it wasn't a mistake. Trusting them. Betting on peace. But if I'm gone, don't mourn. Use it. They respect power. So show them what it looks like. His image faded. Coven entered quiet. The crew wants to know if you're sure. We fire on them now, no takebacks. She looked up. You saw the footage? Yeah. You know what they did? He nodded slowly. And I know we're outnumbered 20-1. Doesn't matter, she said. They killed our captain. They murdered Peace. Now we show them our teeth. He gave a thin smile, the first hint of emotion since the funeral. Damn right. Operation Widowmaker went live at 0400 hours. No speeches. No tears. Just commands and movement. The hum of charging plasma coils. The cold, predatory silence of a crew that had nothing left to lose. As the Vindicator prepared to jump, Lyra stood on the bridge, watching Earth recede in the viewport. She didn't pray. She didn't ask forgiveness. She remembered Ward's laugh. His stubborn optimism. The way he always wore his jacket open like rules were suggestions. And then she sealed that part of herself away, deep, behind command protocols and strategic overlays. Her voice rang out clear. Jump! Stars stretched and bent around them. War had begun. The stars blurred into focus as the Vindicator dropped out of FTL. The Meridian system loomed ahead, 3 barren moons circling a rust-colored gas giant, and nestled in its shadow, the Serothi border post. Compact, gray, and barely armed. Lyra Mason stood on the bridge with her arms folded tight. Station scan, she ordered. Lieutenant Coven responded without turning from the console. Minimal shielding. 3 heat signatures inside. Probably bored, half asleep comms officers. Good. Chief Yano keyed in targeting commands. Orbital strike on standby. Railguns or plasma lances? Lyra didn't hesitate. EMP burst. We're not here to slaughter technicians. Yano arched a brow. Kind of you. They're not our target. With a nod, Lyra moved to the center platform as the bridge lights dimmed. The air took on a subtle hum, the pulse of charge building in the lance cores below the hull. Valkyrie, she said calmly. Execute EMP pattern 1.2. Confirmed, the AI responded. Firing. A single pulse of blue light rippled out from the Vindicator's underbelly, illuminating the vacuum like a silent wave. The Serothi station flickered. Lights died. Shields collapsed. For a moment, it looked like the entire structure exhaled in defeat. Boarding party ready? Lyra asked. Coven was already strapping on his gear. Locked and loaded. The breach was quick. Coven led a 4-man squad into the airlock as Yano watched their vitals from the bridge. Serothi systems were known for redundancy, but the EMP had worked better than expected. No resistance. Inside, the corridor lights flickered weakly, emergency power kicking in. The air was stale. Panels sparked. Coven's voice crackled in Lyra's ear. 3 occupants, all unarmed. They surrendered immediately. Good. Start the sweep. A minute later, he found the central console. Pull everything you can. I want communications logs, encrypted directives, movement orders, anything with a date and a signature. Copy. Valkyrie's voice hummed in Lyra's ear as the data transferred. Commander, preliminary scans detect classified directives embedded within corrupted archives. High clearance Serothi encryption. Can you break it? Eventually. Recommend offloading to core decryption unit. Lyra exhaled, pacing. The station was nothing, a pinprick. But it was the start. One clean strike. One echo. That night, the Vindicator disappeared into deep space, leaving behind nothing but a dark, powerless outpost and 3 terrified Serothi officers who had witnessed the wrath of a ghost. Hours later, back in orbit above a red dwarf star, the crew gathered in the main war room. The decrypted files floated above the table, strings of Serothi text now translated into Terran Standard. Coven leaned forward, scanning. This one. Flagged 4 times. Yano whistled. Signed by Strategos Varnkareth. That's not a border bureaucrat. That's a war hawk. Lyra narrowed her eyes. Translate the main directive. Valkyrie read aloud. Directive 847 Zeta, effective immediately, Eliminate Terran diplomatic vessels within range theta of Serothi space. Justification: preemptive neutralization of emerging threats. All evidence must be framed as mechanical or navigational fault. The room fell silent. Yano's jaw clenched. They planned the Phoenix hit. It wasn't rogue. It was sanctioned. Ward was bait, Coven said quietly. They wanted us to react. Lyra stepped back from the display. And now we have the proof. She turned. Send it. All of it. Encrypt it, route through ghost relays, make sure it hits every Concordium news node. Valkyrie processed the command. Transmitting. Estimated impact, 29 worlds. Concordium response, uncertain. Lyra wasn't expecting justice. She wanted exposure. Light always unsettled predators. 3 days later, the Concordium's response came in, and it was worse than silence. Censorship orders. Disinformation campaigns. Earth accused of falsifying data. Yano slammed his fist into the bulkhead. We handed them the blade that killed Ward, and they still looked away. Lyra stared at the transmission. They're protecting the Serothi. Or afraid of them. Coven asked the question no one else dared. What now? She looked each of them in the eye. We stop asking for help. We stop waiting for justice. We become the consequence. Their next mission was supposed to be a surgical strike on a Serothi listening post orbiting a neutron star. But as the Vindicator arrived in system, Valkyrie spoke up. Warning, Serothi signatures inbound. 3 warships, cloaked, vector intercept. Lyra's blood chilled. Ambush? Affirmative. Hostile lock in 15 seconds. Evasive pattern Delta 9, she shouted. The Vindicator veered hard starboard, engines flaring. Plasma bolts screamed through the void. One clipped their port stabilizer. Shields down to 64%, Coven reported. Reactor spikes. Something hit our cooling array. Options? None, Yano muttered. Outgunned. Outflanked. Lyra's mind raced. Then an idea. Is the gravity well from the neutron star still active? Coven blinked. Yes, but... Plot a slingshot course. Skim the edge, burn hard, ride the curve. Commander, that's suicide. It's also the only way out. Yano nodded grimly. I'll prep the stabilizers. We'll either escape or rip in half. They flew. The Vindicator dove toward the dead star, hull groaning under the pressure. Radiation alarms blared. Hull plating peeled in microstrips. The gravity drag pulled them sideways, but just enough. The Serothi ships couldn't follow. 2 tried. One disintegrated instantly. The other spiraled off course and vanished. They emerged battered, smoking, alive. Repairs took 2 days. Coven limped through engineering with burns along his left arm, still barking orders. Half the ship's drone systems were down. Life support was shaky. Valkyrie's core had overloaded, and with it, part of her memory. The crew was shaken. The quiet was heavier now. We need help, Yano said. Lyra knew. But not from Earth. Not from the Concordium. From the exiled. The broken. The forgotten. From those who knew what it meant to be betrayed by the Serothi. The meeting took place deep inside an asteroid cloaked in a magnetic fog, a hideout used by what little remained of the Vyarta swarm, a species Earth had only heard about in war records. Insected. Biomechanical. Devastated by the Empire generations ago. Lyra walked in alone. 10 Vyarta stood waiting, mandibles clicking, eyes glowing blue. They spoke not with words but with gestures, translated through a drone hovering beside her. You bring fire, the translator said. But so do many before you. Why should we burn again? She held up a data crystal, the signed directive, the death of the Phoenix, Captain Ward's sacrifice. I don't ask for faith. I ask for vengeance. A pause. Then a slow, synchronized hiss, the swarm's version of laughter. We remember Ward. He once spared our last queen when others chose extinction. Lyra blinked. I didn't know that. Now you do. We accept. The swarm turned. Organic warships bloomed from the walls, living vessels built for destruction. They would follow her. Not because she was human, but because she had nothing left to lose, and nothing left to fear. Back aboard the Vindicator, Lyra stood before her crew. From this moment forward, she said, we are not diplomats. We are not politicians. We are fire. The stars ahead were dark. But this time, they would remember. The Vindicator slid into the Caravas Nebula undercloak, silent and unseen. Nebular gas swirled like colored ink through water, violent streaks of ionized red and blue masking movement and distorting scans. Lyra Mason stood at the helm, studying the projected battlefield. 3 Serothi dreadnoughts waited just outside the nebula's mouth, their formation loose, confident. A fleet built on centuries of unchallenged superiority. That confidence would cost them. Behind her, the VRRTA swarm ships hovered in a loose crescent, their hulls shifting, alive. Half organic, half machine. Built not to patrol, but to destroy. Coven's voice cut through the quiet. All systems online. We're invisible in this soup. Yano added. Their sensors won't pick us up until we're on top of them. Then let's get closer, Lyra said. Valkyrie, activate decoy beacons. Staggered pattern. Pull their line apart. Confirmed. Initiating beacon deployment. Outside, 5 microprobes zipped from the Vindicator, transmitting false engine signatures. Seconds later, the dreadnoughts responded, splitting formation, repositioning to intercept. Just as planned. The first strike came without warning. A VRRTA warbeast launched from the mist, firing living spines that drilled into the lead dreadnought's hull. It tore open like fruit under pressure. The second ship wheeled to respond, too late. The Vindicator came screaming from the fog, railguns firing in rapid succession. The hull vibrated from the force. Blue tracers punched through the enemy's midsection, targeting reactor seams. Coven monitored energy levels. Reactor surge in their aft core. Secondary ignition in 5. The Serothi ship erupted in a starbright blast, breaking in 2. Yano barked over the comms. 2 down. Third's retreating. I think they finally got the message. Don't let it jump, Lyra ordered. Valkyrie responded instantly. Calculating interception arc suggesting precision warp. Do it. The Vindicator blinked through space, exiting warp just above the retreating dreadnought. It tried to raise shields, too slow. Yano's targeting reticle went red. Firing. A final salvo cut the last warship in half. Silence fell. In the aftermath, salvage teams swept the area, pulling data cores and weapons fragments. The VRRTA harvested organic remains from the wrecks, trophies, memories, warnings. Lyra stood alone in the command observation deck, watching fire die out in the nebula. Coven approached quietly. Big win. First major Serothi fleet taken down in a decade. We should be celebrating. We will, she said. When the war is over. He paused. There's something you should see. From the wreckage. The intelligence chamber was dim. Holograms hovered midair, intercepted Serothi communications, recent and encrypted. Valkyrie highlighted one message. High Strategos Varnkareth has relocated to Karshal. Emergency defensive protocol enacted. Imperial court in lockdown. Coven crossed his arms. He's running scared. No, Lyra said slowly. He's daring us to come. She turned toward the map. Plot a course. We're going to the throne world. Karshal glittered like a crown of steel and ice. The Serothi capital, carved into the crust of a moon-sized planet, pulsed with layered shields and defense satellites. It was a fortress masquerading as a city. The Vindicator arrived cloaked and quiet. Lyra didn't bring the swarm fleet. Not yet. First, she needed to see the enemy's heart up close. She and Coven landed on a commercial port disguised as merchants from a neutral system. The streets gleamed with marble and chrome. Serothi civilians moved with arrogant grace. Holographic banners floated above walkways, depicting humans as primitives and beasts. One banner showed Captain Ward burning in a distorted image, a grotesque propaganda piece. Coven bristled. They turned him into a warning. Lyra stared at it, unblinking. Then we'll turn him into a ghost. They moved through the city's lower levels, collecting visuals. Human laborers in collars. Genetic hybrids chained in glass cells. Children working under armed guards. Every shadow revealed another crack in the Empire's facade. Lyra lifted her comms device. Valkyrie, ready the transmission. Confirmed. Syncing to planetary network in 10 seconds. Across Karshal, every screen flickered. Streets paused. Commerce halted. And then, Captain Ward's final transmission filled the air. If you hear this, don't let them write our names in footnotes. The image played once. Then again. And again. Shockwaves spread through the city. Some civilians stared in disbelief. Others shouted. Riots sparked near the slave districts. Suppression squads rolled out, too late. From orbit, the Vyarta swarm dropped like knives. The assault began. Karshal's outer defenses ignited, firing into the descending swarm. Planetary shields rose, shimmering like a dome. Lyra, back aboard the Vindicator, stood in full battle gear. Valkyrie, focus all fire on the eastern shield generators. Swarm units strike from the dark side, no light, no mercy. The ship roared into position. Coven managed core systems, sweat dripping into his collar. Shields at 90%. Holding. Not for long. Yano barked. Deploying drill bombs. Swarm ships burrowed into the crust, bypassing outer barriers. Explosions rippled from underground. One shield generator blinked out. Then a second. The dome cracked. As the palace walls trembled, High Strategos Varnkaris stood in his command chamber, flanked by gold-armored guards. He sneered as the Vindicator descended through the smoke. She dares, he muttered. A Terran. He drew his blade, an obsidian staff blade passed down through the Strategos line. Then let her bleed. Lyra landed in the royal hall with a crash, breaching from a side entry. Fire behind her. Blood in the air. She advanced alone. Varnkaris stepped forward, tall and reptilian, eyes burning. You think killing me will break the Empire? He hissed. No, she said. But it's a start. They clashed. His blade was elegant, centuries old. Her combat knife was carbon-forged, chipped and bloodied. She dodged, blocked, rolled. He struck with precision, years of ceremonial training. She fought with instinct, every move earned through fire. He slashed across her arm, drawing blood. She growled, kicked his knee, drove her blade upward. He caught her wrist. They locked. You're nothing, he snarled. I'm everything you were too blind to see. She twisted, jammed the knife into the soft membrane beneath his armored throat. The light in his eyes died. Hours later, the Vindicator hovered above Karshal. The Empire was fracturing. Rebellions rose across its outer colonies. Communications collapsed. The throne was empty. Lyra stood in the war room, blood still drying on her sleeve. President Hallstrom's voice came through the main display. The Concordium's voting to reconstitute leadership. They're asking Earth to take a seat at the table. Yano grinned. About damn time. Coven added. What do you want to tell them? Lyra thought for a long moment. Tell them we didn't come for power. We came for justice. And if they forget that, we'll come again. On Earth, a monument was raised. Captain Elias Ward. Marble and steel. A flame that never extinguished. Below his likeness, a single inscription read. They silenced one man. We answered with 1,000.